For the first time in seemingly forever, the 2026 Atlanta Braves will open the season at home. But outside of that, it's a pretty rough schedule. Let's talk about it. Yes, welcome on in to Braves Today for Wednesday, August 27th, your source of news, notes, and updates on your Atlanta Braves. I'm your host, Lindsay Crosby. You can follow me on social media at Crosby Baseball. You can follow the show on X, Braves_today. We have a Facebook page and an Instagram as well. And you can find all of my written work, bravestoday.com. That's the Braves Today Substack, as this is both a podcast and a newsletter. A couple things to get to today. Ozzie Albies talking to the media about not wanting to leave Atlanta. Hurston Waldrep battles through some poor control and actually ends up pretty good start against Miami. But first, we have to get to Atlanta's 2026 schedule. The Braves, for I believe it's the third time in Truist Park history, they are going to open at home. They technically played at home to start the 2022 season, but they weren't originally scheduled to. Because of the lockout, the first week of games had to get rescheduled. And so this was just where they were in the calendar when MLB said you're going to play these games. 2018 was the last time the Braves were scheduled to open the season at home. They took on Philly for 3. They opened on Thursday, May 29th, and they actually walked Philly off 8-5 thanks to 3 runs in the 8th and then 3 runs in the 9th, including a Nick Markakis walk-off 3-run homer off of Hector Neris, former Braves legend Hector Neris. But here's the thing, there's a couple things to like about this schedule, but a lot of it kind of sucks for Atlanta. Let's go through it. The things to like about this, one, opening at home. They almost never do it, right? They have Kansas City on Thursday, March 26th. Then they have an off day. That's the thing MLB does a lot so that you can get your first game in if there's rain. And they had to use that, I think it was last season in Philly. And then once they finish the 3-game set against Kansas City, they then host the Athletics for 3. So it's a much easier opening stretch than on the road against San Diego and the Dodgers, right? After that, they go out west for 7. They take on Arizona for 4 games in the desert, and then the Angels for 3 before coming back home. So the start is a little bit easier, right? Just not nearly as tough there as what they had to deal with this year, where they were already in a huge hole, 0-7, and just never climbed out of it. Another thing that is good about the schedule is, once again, Atlanta gets July 4th at home. They will host the Mets for 4, Friday, July 3rd through Monday, July 6th. It's a wraparound series. And so they will get to do July 4th, which is a Saturday this year. So hopefully all of your jobs give you Friday off and you get a long weekend. It's one of the best things about holidays that are tied to a calendar day and not the third Monday or whatever, because you can always, sometimes you can do them. When July 4th is on a Thursday, I take a Friday off and you get like a 5-day weekend for taking 1 PTO day. Hopefully, all of your jobs give you Friday off for July 4th on the Saturday. Things to like there, right? There's a couple things that are good. There are some things that aren't necessarily good or bad, just really interesting, okay? In April, the Braves have 2 straight weeks of division games. Okay. I mentioned they face the Angels and they come back home. Cleveland for 3. They host Miami for 3. And then they travel to Philadelphia for 3, to Washington for 4. And then in the thing that I really hate how MLB does this, then they come home and face Philadelphia again for 3 more. So in a 10-game stretch, 7 of those will be against Philadelphia. In 10 days, 7 of those 10 games will be against Philadelphia. And I just hate, 6 of those 10. I just hate how MLB does this. You play the same team twice in back-to-back weeks. Because if you have one major injury, right? Let's just throw out a random thing. Let's say Ronald Acuna Jr. twists his ankle. You may lose him for 2 series against a major division rival. It's really frustrating how they do that, how they stack up matchups like that. Okay? So, yeah, 2 straight weeks of division games in April. Not good or bad, just really kind of interesting there. You do have more of those situations where you double up on teams in a short time span. You face Boston 6 times in the month of May. You get them mid-May, like 15th, 16th, 17th at home, and then you go to Boston a week and a half later after playing 7 divisional games. So another kind of frustrating, and it's some short road trips. You get the Cubs at home for 3, Boston for 3. You fly to Miami for 4. You fly back home for Washington for 3, and then you go to Boston for 6. Kind of a weird little situation there, kind of how that works. I really don't like how they do that. There's some bad things about the schedule too, right? In May, to open May, you have a 3-city 11-day road trip. You go to Colorado for 3, you go to Seattle for 3, and then you go to the Dodgers for 3. So, like, talk about a grind. I mean, you've got almost 2 weeks away from home. So, a little frustrating there. Other frustrating kind of things that aren't maybe necessarily great. You don't face the Mets until June. The first time Atlanta will face the Mets is June 12th in New York. They'll play them for 3. And then Atlanta will host them, like I said, for July 4th. But it's just kind of odd that you don't see them for the first time until June. The flip side of that is you play Philly, again, you play Philly twice in a week and a half span in April. But then after that, you don't face them again until September. You go to Philly for 4 in September. You come home for Tampa Bay, and then you have 3 against Philly. Another situation where 10 days, you face them 7 times. So you get them, again, you get them in April. You get them in September. You don't play them at all the entire rest of the schedule. So between injuries and the trade deadline, both these teams could be completely different in September than they are when you play them in April. Kind of frustrating how that works. Also, the end of the schedule for Atlanta, like we talked this year about how the start of the schedule is so tough. Right? You had that 7-game road trip, Padres, Dodgers, and all of that. The end of this schedule isn't the easiest thing in the world. Starting in like late August, you go to Milwaukee, you play the Dodgers, you've got Philly for 7, you go to Wrigley Field to face the Cubs, you go to Houston to face the Astros, and then what I'm assuming is going to be a better Cincinnati team at home before you wrap up with what we hope is an easier series with Miami. So, yes, there's some good things. You open at home. First time since 2018 that you're scheduled to open the season at home. You get 4th of July at home. But you've got some long road trips in there, right? Where you're again, Colorado, Seattle, and you close with the Dodgers there in early May. Longer road trips. And what's also really kind of annoying here, I mentioned some of the short road trips. You've got one in early August. You have a 7-game homestand. You face Washington, you face Miami. Then you fly to New York to take on the Yankees for 3, and then fly right back home to take on the Mets. There's no off days in there. So, you have that homestand, and then you leave for New York for 3, and then you come right back home for the other New York team for 3. Just a lot of those shorter road trips where it's like, hey, you're going to go play one series, you're going to come home, right? Kind of looking through, you do that, I believe it's at least 4 times in this schedule, where you've got a road trip that is for one team, and then you're back home. Or it's just odd how they're doing that. I don't really understand why MLB thinks it's a good idea for you to do an entire road trip to face one team and then come right back home. But neither here nor there. In just a minute, let me know what you think about this schedule. Is this a good schedule for the Braves, a bad schedule for the Braves? Is this, it is what it is. You face the same number of teams as everybody else. You face everybody, and it's just a question of how good you're playing when you get them. Let me know what you think. I'm on social media at Crosby Baseball. If you're watching on YouTube, leave a comment down below. In just a second, let's talk about Tuesday's win. Yeah, a lot of great stuff from the offense. But I want to talk about Hurston Waldrep first, because it's not an impressive start from the statistics, the strikeout numbers or lack thereof, but I was really impressed with what he did to make it through this outing. We'll break that down next, right here on Braves Today. Welcome back to Braves Today. Lindsay Crosby. And kind of looking at last night's win, okay? Atlanta takes down the Marlins 11-2, thanks to breaking a 2-2 scoreless tie with 9 runs in the 9th inning. We're going to get to the offense in a minute. But Hurston Waldrep really kind of impressed me in this one, because when you look at what was going on, he was very clearly not able to control all of his stuff in the first inning. And the Marlins, seeing him twice in like a week and a half span, right? They very clearly had a game plan against him. We've talked about it on the show before. They were, in essence, just trying to ignore the splitter unless he left it up in the zone, and making him throw strikes and then jumping on those strikes, right? So he really kind of struggled early, gave up 4 hits and 1 run in the first inning, took over like 25 or 30 pitches to get out of the inning. But from there, I mean, he finishes this game with 8 hits allowed, 1 run, 1 walk, no strikeouts. No strikeouts. And it's not this has happened before. Good pitchers have done this before. CJ Nitkowski had a great stat on social media. Waldrop's the 7th Braves pitcher since 2000 to go 5 or more innings with 1 run or less and no strikeouts. And on that list, Ian Anderson in 2021, okay, Tim Hudson in 2012, and Greg Maddux in 2003. It happens to everybody, right? But what was impressive, like the biggest moment to me of the game, was the 4th inning. Okay, Waldrep gives up a leadoff double to Liam Hicks. He hits Heriberto Hernandez and then walks Troy Johnston. So the bases are loaded with no outs. And Waldrep gets out of it. He gets like a weak tapper back to the mound from Derek Hill. And then he gets 2 flyouts to hang a noble tiger on the Marlins. No outs, bases loaded, and he ends with the team incapable of getting the easy run. Noble tiger. Happened to Atlanta a few times this year, but getting out of that inning told me that, holy crap, even when Hurston Waldrep doesn't have his best stuff, and he clearly did not have his best stuff last night, he was able to start establishing the sinker, to get weak contact, to get back into counts, and then use the splitter. Like, just getting the 2-seamer in the zone for strikes, getting himself back in the count, and then, even if he wasn't getting the whiffs with the splitter, he was still able to get some weak contact with the splitter. And this is something where I feel like a lot of young pitchers, they can hang if things are working, right? They make this plan before the game, and these plans are typically the pitching coach, the pitchers, Sean Murphy, like they're all together making the pitching plan for the game and the strategy, what you're going to do. And we saw one early mound visit where Sean Murphy came up, Rick Kranitz came out, and how those mound visits kind of work is they're not scrapping the game plan completely, but they're saying, okay, well, we got to figure out what we can keep and what we got to change, because Waldrep doesn't have everything. And to be able to get out of that start with 5 innings and 1 run allowed is a huge deal for Hurston Waldrep. And it shows me that, yes, the Braves may sign a dude in free agency who takes Waldrop's spot in the rotation starting for next year. Because again, you're going to have Sale, you're going to have Schwellenbach, you're going to have Strider, and Lopez says he wants to be back in the rotation. If you sign a free agent, he's likely your fifth starter. But, so Hurston Waldrep would start in AAA. But it tells me that when he comes up, because he will come up, Atlanta always uses, 10, 13, whatever it is, regular starters. When he comes up, he may do something like Schwellenbach did last year, where he just pitches too well to ever go back down. The kid has clearly turned a corner. He clearly has it. And I'm very excited to see what he's able to do going forward. And it's nothing but a great thing. I remember last offseason when people were talking about, should you trade AJ Smith-Shawver? Should you trade Hurston Waldrep? 2 off seasons ago, that was still some conversation. Should you trade either one of those guys for some sort of upgrade? I'm glad they didn't do it. And I'm really curious to see, 1, what he can continue to do the rest of the year. 2, do they try to find a way to get him back to the minors, shut him down a week early or something? Is he the corresponding move for Chris Sale this weekend or whatever, so that they keep him PPI eligible if he wins Rookie of the Year next year? I'm insanely curious to see what happens here, because I do think there is a path, if they're trying to be strategic about this, where they shut him down with the goal of, we got to keep him eligible. It's less than 45 days in the majors, and there's an innings number as well. We got to keep him eligible to get us a PPI pick next year. But in just a second, I want to talk about a PPI pick this year, because Drake Baldwin came into this game late, had some heroics off of a lefty. He needs to get more playing time. And Ozzie Albies had a great game and told the media he doesn't want to leave Atlanta. We'll break that down next, right here on Braves Today. Final segment of Braves Today. Going to be a little bit shorter one. I'm trying to conserve my voice. I didn't have a voice for the postcast last night, so I'm trying to conserve my voice for, to do this and then to get a postcast out after today's day game. But Drake Baldwin was one of multiple Braves who checked in last night. Let me tell you about the bench here, okay? The Braves got 5 RBI in this game from players who didn't begin the game in the lineup, okay? Drake Baldwin had come in to pinch hit for Nick Allen. He then stayed in the game behind the plate. And then Vidal Brujan checked in to play shortstop. So that was something where Baldwin was the pinch hitter, and then Baldwin moved to catcher in place of Sean Murphy, and Brujan checked in for shortstop. Eli White also checked in the game to run for Marcell Ozuna in the 9th. And because they sent, 11 guys at the plate, 12 guys at the plate, all of them got to hit in the 9th inning. So when Baldwin came back in, got back up there, he got a 2 RBI single in that 9th inning. Vidal Brujan, revenge game. I'm a believer in revenge games. He got a chance to bat, ambush the first pitch he saw, RBI double. And then Eli White got an RBI single, which pushed the lead, I think, to 6 at that point. But for Baldwin here, he's sat almost every time against lefty starters, and he has very few at-bats against lefties. But we've seen he continues to outperform just about everybody else against lefties. Yes, it's a small sample size. Statistically, it is not, what is it? I was looking at WRC plus and stuff, and it's not statistically significant. It's not, you need more at-bats to solidify the WRC number versus what he has this year, but he just keeps producing against lefties. And if you look at the last 30 days, Marcell Ozuna's batting .217. Sean Murphy's batting .094. If Atlanta's going to keep continuing to, 1, run Sean Murphy out there against all lefty starters, as well as let him catch Hurston Waldrep, which is super smart. He absolutely helped Waldrep in that first inning. Whether it's blocking, whether it's blocking, whether it's throwing guys out, trying to steal. Sean Murphy is absolutely an asset behind the plate to the Braves pitchers. And I don't want them to trade him because he's so good back there. But if you're going to continue playing Murphy against lefty starters, and he's always going to catch Hurston Waldrep, which makes sense, then Atlanta needs to be putting Drake Baldwin into the DH spot as well. Because he's just, it's pretty much an even timeshare behind the plate now between Murphy and Baldwin, and neither one of them are getting DH time because Ozuna's in there every day. This is one of those reasons why you needed to trade Ozuna at the deadline so that you could force Snit to put Baldwin in the lineup on an almost everyday basis. And right now, the Rookie of the Year battle is deeper than just Baldwin versus Collins. We have a new contender here on the boards. So right now, as of this morning on FanDuel, which love having them sponsoring Braves Today, Isaac Collins plus 220. Drake Baldwin plus 185. Pitcher Cade Horton of the Chicago Cubs is at plus 170. So he has now taken the lead in Rookie of the Year. He's made 17 starts, 18 total appearances, so 93 and 2/3 innings. He's 8-4 with a 2.88 ERA. Now, he's not impressed in the strikeout department. 77 strikeouts and 93 and 2/3 innings. It's at 7.4 strikeouts per 9 innings. He's walked 29, which is almost 3 walks per 9 innings. He's given up, I think, 8 homers. He's hit six batters. Like, he's given up, his whip's like 116. But he has an ERA under 3. He's 8-4 for a team that is going to make the postseason. He has now taken over the lead on FanDuel for Rookie of the Year. So Drake Baldwin needs as much playing time as he can get, and he needs to do more than he's done recently. Right? Drake Baldwin's overall statistics have dropped a little bit. He's now batting .279, 458 slug, 344 on base, 14 homers. Like, it's not bad numbers, but it's not where he was batting .300 earlier in the year. In the month of August and the month of July, both of them, Drake Baldwin hit .278 or .279. Combined in the 2 months for 5 total home runs. So this month, he's got 3 homers in 18 games played, 16 starts. He's driven in 19. He has 11 runs, the most runs he's had in any month. 755 OPS. It's like you need a little bit. Like the month of May he's not going to repeat that. He hit 389 with a 1.003 OPS and 3 homers. But Drake Baldwin, he's getting the RBI here. But he just needs to play a little more often so he can do a little bit more. So he can take back over Rookie of the Year and get Atlanta a draft pick. A guy, real quick, let's talk about Ozzie Albies. Because he has a big game last night, right? He picks up 3 hits. 2 of them are homers. Third one's a double. 4 total RBI in the blowout. He gets a solo shot off of Sandy Alcantara in the 4th inning. Really impressive. He gets down, like, I think 1-2. He fouls off 4 potential strike 3 pitches before he launches a 99-mile-an-hour fastball into the second deck in right field. Really good at bat. The second home run, though, is probably even better. 0-1 slider, and he gets it, but he hit it as a righty. It's the first right-handed homer Ozzie has had in all of 2025, which is the big deal here. Because we've been talking about the wrist injury and how the wrist injury had kind of hampered him. We were assuming the power was down because of the wrist injury. First right-handed homer of the season. First multi-homer game he's had since July 2023. And we've talked for a while about, like, the assumption was that he was going to come back, right? It's $7 million club option for next year. Buyout's $4 million. So the difference is $3 million. the AJC, in this case, it was Gabe Burns, because they currently do not have a Braves beat writer, frustratingly, actually asked Ozzie. Gabe Burns asked Ozzie about leaving versus staying. Ozzie's answer was, 100%, I hope to stay moving forward. That's definitely the dream. This is his home. He wants to be here, right? He considers this family. He met his wife. They got married here. They got married in 2023. He has, the nonprofit foundation that does animal rescue. We actually tried to adopt a dog from them, but there's residency restrictions, how far away you can live from Atlanta and do it. And so we weren't able to do it, but they do a lot of really great work. There's always adoptable dogs being brought to the ballpark to meet people. That's something that his foundation does a lot of, things like that. And so, the assumption here is they're going to keep Ozzie. But I think the biggest deal is, we've talked about, you have to upgrade the middle infield offense somehow, whether it's second base or shortstop. And I've kind of talked before about how hard it is to get an upgrade at shortstop. We talked about Anthony Volpe yesterday, and a lot of people do not want Anthony Volpe. There's a lot of, I can't really gauge the consensus of the fan base because there's not a consensus. Some people think the biggest problem on this roster is Nick Allen's terrible offense, which, not true. That's not true. I'm a believer in defense, fine. But if Nick Allen's offense is the difference between you winning or losing, you have bigger problems. Okay? But there's some people that Atlanta's got to upgrade Nick Allen's offense. Find a better version. Find a better alternative to Nick Allen. But then there's a lot of people, when you present the alternatives, they're out. Trade for Anthony Volpe? Nope, they're out. And a lot of people want something that's unrealistic, right? It is unrealistic to assume that you can get either Geraldo Perdomo or Jordan Lawler from the Diamondbacks. Okay? Perdomo signed to an extension. They see him as a leader in the clubhouse. Lawler is penciled in for third base next year. It's very unlikely that they move a top shortstop prospect who's this close to the majors. That's unrealistic. Ezekiel Tovar, maybe that's realistic. Trevor Story, maybe that's realistic. J.P. Crawford, maybe that's realistic. Ha-Seong Kim, maybe that's realistic. But everybody loves the idea of replacing Nick Allen until confronted with the options to replace Nick Allen. Some people want Atlanta to stroke the check for Bo Bichette. I understand the appeal of Bo Bichette. That's also a situation where once you do it, once you sign him to that $25 million a year contract or whatever it's going to be, you've broken the seal now on players making more than $22 million a year. Atlanta's not signed anybody on the current roster to more than $22 million a year. That's it. Nobody. Olsen's not making it. Riley's not making it. Strider's not making it. Chris Sale's not making it. Nobody's making more than $22 million. So once you pop that seal, once you decide that a flawed player in Bo Bichette, who's one of the worst defensive shortstops in baseball, once you decide that he is worth more than $22 million, it is very, very hard to put that genie back in the bottle. It is very, very hard to get any other player that you're trying to extend, a Spencer Schwellenbach, a Drake Baldwin, whatever it is. It's very hard to get either a new signee or a current player on an extension. It's very hard to get them to accept, hey, we're not going to pay you more than $22 million a year in any year of this deal because nobody else on the roster is doing it because you've broken that seal. So if you want to sign Bo Bichette, okay, sign Bo Bichette. Understand offensively he should be fine. If you're frustrated with Michael Harris's plate approach, you're not going to love Bo Bichette. But know that, one, your infield defense takes a massive hit, going from one of the best in baseball in Nick Allen to one of the worst in Bo Bichette. He's a future second baseman. There's going to be some teams that sign him as a second baseman now. He's destined for second base. Maybe this is something where your plan is to shift him to second to replace Ozzie when Ozzie's club options are up, and you promote one of your prospects. Maybe it's Lodis. Maybe it's one of the youngsters, John Gill, South of Scene, somebody else who you think is ready. Maybe that's the plan, is you sign Bo Bichette and then you kick him to second when you promote one of those kids to come up. But just know that in the meantime, if you make that signing, that changes a lot of things going forward for Atlanta, including you now probably likely having to pay more for every free agent or extension that you do. So we'll see what happens. This has been Braves Today for August 27th. Do me a favor. If you're listening on audio, leave a 5-star review, Apple, Spotify, YouTube Music. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when we drop the next episode. And until next time, this has been Braves Today.